In 1996, the first Pokemon games, Red and Green, were released in Japan, starting off the beginning of the franchise. It soon grew to other regions across the world, leading to games being translated to allow fans to play the game in their preferred language. With the current generation of Pokemon games, Scarlet and Violet, there are a total of 9 languages that you can play in: Japanese, English, German, Spanish, French, Italian, Korean, and simplified and traditional Chinese. Now, when translating the game into different languages, there are quite a few moves that are just direct translations. Things like Sora Tobu being translated to fly in English, or Torikurum being translated to trick room. Makes sense, right? But have you ever thought to yourself, hey, why do Baniri and Spoink learn Splash? Or why is Population Bomb a slicing move? Today, we're going to go over the name of the moves in Japanese just to see how different they are in English and to add some context that might be missing for someone who plays Pokemon in just the English versions of the games. And you're not going to just see how they were translated, but how they were localized to make Japanese cultural topics and ideas fit into a global game. Let's start off with the one that everybody is confused about. Splash, a move made popular by Magikarp. This is a normal, yes, a normal type move, and this is because the name in Japanese is actually haneru, which means to hop in English. So now it makes a bit more sense when you think about why Pokemon like Hoppip or Baniri can learn Splash. It also even makes sense for Magikarp with all the mini games and apps that are dedicated to making a Magikarp hop in the air. In Gen 6, Gourgeist and Pumpkaboo were introduced to the Pokemon series, along with their signature move, Trick or Treat. This is a ghost type move that adds the ghost typing to the target, very similar to Force Curse, which adds the grass typing to its target. It's not the most relevant move, but in Japanese, the original name is Halloween, which is just the name Halloween in Japanese. And I find it funny that the translators didn't or couldn't keep the name as Halloween, so in order to get around that, they still tied the move to Halloween in English by just using the word trick or treat. That's pretty fun. For this next one, from what I could find, most of the other languages use the original Japanese name and just directly translate it into their respective language, but the English version has a slight name change. Dragon Darts is the signature move of Dragapult and is a really cool move in my opinion. This is a dragon type move that hits the target twice, but if there are 2 Pokemon on your opponent's side, it will hit each of them once. There's a lot more that happens with the targeting in this move, but anyway, in Japanese, the move is Dragon Arrow. This is just Dragon Arrow spelled in katakana, and like I mentioned before, almost every other language in Pokemon also translates it into Dragon Arrow or Dragon Arrows. One of the most recent Pokemon to get introduced in the game, Sinistra, a grass ghost Pokemon, gets the signature move Matcha Gotcha, and honestly, I think the English translation did a really good job here. It's so much fun to say, Matcha Gotcha, Matcha Gotcha. In Japanese, the move is called Shaka Shaka Ho. This is a combination of the onomatopoeia Shaka Shaka, Rustle Rustle or Rattle Rattle in English, and Ho meaning cannon. And Shaka Shaka is actually the sound of the matcha being stirred, hence why it was given to the Pokemon that's based off of matcha. In recent Pokédex entries, mentions of real-world animals have been retconned. Just take a look at Raichu's Pokédex entry. It talks about Indian elephants, but in its Pokédex entry for Pokemon Legends Arceus, it was changed to Kabaraja. However, even though they have changed some mentions of real-world animals in Pokemon, there are still moves that include the names of animals. Mousehold's signature move, Population Bomb, is a 10 base power move that has the potential to hit a total of 10 times. In Japanese, it is Nezumi-zan, which means proliferation or multiplying like rats. Huh? Get it? That's pretty cute to me, especially since Nezumi, the word for mouse or rat, make up the first 3 syllables of the Japanese move. So you kind of lose some of the humor in the translation. The name in English doesn't really have the same play on words that Japanese does. As for why it's a slicing move, I believe that lies in the kanji zan. Zan means cut. It's not the kanji that's used in Nezumi-zan, but they are homophones of one another, yet another play on words. Sword Dance is called Tsurugi no Mai, which directly translates to Sword Dance. Dragon Dance is Ryu no Mai, which is Dragon Dance. Makes sense so far, right? You're following me? Well, Quiver Dance is Chou no Mai, which directly translates to Butterfly Dance. It gives it kind of a cuter connotation, and it really makes you wonder about the non-butterfly Pokemon that get access to it. Speaking of bugs, what about the bug type move U-turn? What's up with that? Bugs doing a U-turn? Not on my watch, buddy. But actually, the move in Japanese is called Tonbo Gairi. This means returning from a destination right after arriving there. Man, that is a mouthful. But as to why it is a bug type move, let's take a look at the words in the phrase. We have Tonbo, which means dragonfly, and Kairi, which means return. Put them together and you have a phrase that translates to dragonfly return. There you have it, dragonflies are bugs, hence the bug type. In Gen 1, we got a flying type move called Mirror Move that, oddly enough, only bird Pokemon can learn. And Sigilith, I guess it's a bird. This is because it is Omogaishi in Japanese, which means parroting something back, and it contains the word for parrot, omo, right there. Payday, the signature move of Meowth in Persian, has a mention of what animal? That's right, it's a cat. In Japanese, it is neko ni koban, literally translated as coin for a cat. This is a proverb that means giving something valuable to someone who doesn't value it. An interesting use of the phrase, but I don't know. Personally, I think Meowth knows the value of a coin. Whoa, watch out for the Hariyamas. Speaking of which, did you know that there are Pokemon moves that actually come from sumo wrestling? In the official competitive Pokemon circuit, VGC, there are plenty of moves that are staples, but there is one that is incredibly strong. Fake Out is a 40 base power move with increased priority that can only be used when a Pokemon is first brought out. That's all fine and dandy, but what makes it so good in VGC? Well, this move always makes the target flinch, preventing the target from moving the whole turn. This move gives you a huge chance to set up or target down one of your opponent's Pokemon. In Japanese, the move is Nikodamashi, and the term refers to a move in sumo where someone claps their hand in front of their opponent to distract them or make them flinch. Then, similar to Pokemon, they can take advantage of this move to get ahead in the match. Additionally, Nikodamashi is a combination of the words nickel, meaning cat, and damasu, meaning to trick or deceive. And interestingly, one of the first Pokemon to get the move in Gen 3, Meowth, and one of the most prolific users of the move in VGC, Incineroar, are both cats. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, the new Hisuian Pokemon brought new moves with them, one of which is Headlong Rush. It's a 120 base power ground type move that deals a lot of damage, but at the cost of lowering the user's defense and special defense. So it's essentially the ground equivalent of the move Close Combat. This move is another sumo term, and in Japanese it is Buchikamashi. From what I found, it refers to ramming an opponent with one's head, shoulders, and hands, pretty much their whole upper body, which might explain why it's categorized as a punching move in the games. Now, what works in a Japanese series for kids doesn't always work in other places. I mean, just compare the 4Kids dub of One Piece compared to the original. You get what I mean. And would you look at that? The same applies to Pokemon moves. There is a pair of moves that you would say are very sweet and lovely, but are actually really annoying to deal with in game. I'm talking, of course, about Sweet Kiss and Lovely Kiss. For Sweet Kiss, it is a fairy type move that will confuse the target, and for Lovely Kiss, it is a normal type move that will put the target to sleep. In Japanese though, they really play on the whole counterpart thing going on. Sweet Kiss is Tenshi no Kisu, Angel's Kiss, and Lovely Kiss is Akuma no Kisu, Devil's Kiss. So Angel, sweet, yeah, I get that, but Devil, lovely? I'm not too sure about that one. But that's nothing compared to the next one. In Gen 6, we got a new legendary Pokemon, Yveltal, and with it came a new signature move, Oblivion Wing. This is a 80 base power move that heals 75% of the damage dealt. This is a really cool name for a move in my opinion, but in Japanese, it's even edgier. Desu Wing, meaning Death Wing. I can see why that might be a little too much for the game series. Now these moves aren't your typical grandma moves. These are the move names that are going to knock your socks off. If you're familiar with the Gen 9 OU metagame, then you're probably aware of Hisuian Samurot's move, Ceaseless Edge. This is a dark type move that also sets up a layer of spikes on your opponent's side of the field. While Ceaseless Edge isn't a bad name, it does sound a little edgy, kind of like the move before, or like if Shadow the Hedgehog came up with the name for it. In Japanese, the move is Hiken Tianami, and this translates to Hidden Sword Technique 1000 Waves. That's a pretty sick name for a move. I also think it's important to point out the kanji for this move since the name in Japanese isn't so long, but the translation for it is. Even though it's written in hiragana in the game, the kanji for the name of the move makes the meaning more apparent. And with the Japanese, I believe it makes more sense why it sets up a layer of spikes. You kind of get the feeling that you're getting hit over and over again, similar to when your opponent brings in a Pokemon and they take damage from spikes. Another sword technique word is included in the move Aerial Ace. In Japanese, the move is called Tsubame Gaishi, meaning swallow's cut. This is a reference to a sword technique created by Sasaki Kojiro that mimics the flight of a swallow. And if you're wondering, Sasaki Kojiro was a Japanese swordsman from the late 1500s and early 1600s. You might be familiar with him if you're a fan of the series Vagabond. And fun fact, the name for James from the Pokemon anime is actually Kojiro in Japanese. So there's more than one reference to this guy in the series. Speaking of references, if you like anime, you might like to know that the move Double Team is called Kagebunshin in Japanese. And that same Japanese name is used for Shadow Clone Jutsu in Naruto. Now, Pokemon came out before Naruto, so this isn't really a reference, but it is cool that the phrase is used in both series. For the next two, we have moves that contain the word dragon and have more than one meaning. The fan favorite Rayquaza has a signature move called Dragon Ascent with an impressive animation. In Japanese, the move is Garyo Tensei. This means something like Dragon Ascension, but the part I find interesting is that it's also a play on words. The phrase Garyo Tensei also means putting the final touches on something. The other move is one of the strongest dragon type moves in the game, Draco Meteor. This is a staple for plenty of dragon types in the game. In Japanese, the move is Ryuseigun. This actually translates to meteor shower in English, but the reason why it's called Draco Meteor in English and why it's a dragon type move is because of this. The kanji for the move is this. The first character, Ryu, means current or flow, but it shares the same reading as this character, Ryu, which means dragon. So it's a little play on words since the first kanji sounds similar to the kanji for dragon. I don't know if I've actually ever used the move Razor Wind in game, but its name in Japanese really intrigues me because it's actually a reference to a type of Japanese spirit known as a yokai. It is Kamaitachi. While this could also mean a cut caused by a whirlwind, it's also the name of this lovable little creature, a flying weasel with razors for hands. In Japanese folklore, they appear while you're walking in ferocious winds and they cut you. It's only until after you're out of the strong wind that you realize that you have new gashes on your body. So while this might not make sense to other parts of the fan base outside of Japan, it's cool to see that there is a reference to Japanese folklore like this in the games. And there we have it, folks. Just a few Japanese names that I find really interesting, and I hope you found them interesting as well. If there's one that you find really interesting or one that's not listed on here, please let me know in the comments. I would love to see what you guys find. And while you're leaving a comment, don't forget to like and subscribe for more content like this. With that, I will see you in the next one. Peace.